Welcome to week 7 of Bible Studies for Life. Today we're moving into a different section. We're going to be talking about family, and we're going through the book of Genesis. So looking forward to this. I hope you are as well. Before we dive into Genesis chapter 4 today, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, hit the like. You know how this works, right? Subscribe, like. If you've got a comment, question, put that in there. If you want to tell us where you're watching from, we love that. And then share the video with somebody else. Appreciate when you do that. I love it. I got a message last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, from one of the guys said that he puts it on his Facebook page for his teachers every week. Appreciate that, Eddie. Appreciate you doing that. All right, we're going to be looking at this. Before we do, go to give.exposedtochrist.com and support what we're doing. All right, Genesis chapter 4. Sometimes, this is a tough one, right? We know we're in Genesis chapter 4. Sometimes what we learn from Scripture are from the good examples. Sometimes it's from the bad examples. The man was intimate with his wife Eve, and she conceived and gave birth to Cain. She said, I have had a male child with the Lord's help. She also gave birth to his brother Abel. Now Abel became a shepherd of flocks, but Cain worked the ground. Okay, so here's our setup. I'm just going to tell you too, this is some great storytelling. I mean, it's not a big passage, but boy, the storytelling is really good. Here's the setup, right? Love this. It's the man. Didn't even name him, Adam. Adam was intimate with his wife Eve, and she had Cain, and then she had Abel, right? Abel was the shepherd. Cain worked the ground. Okay, now just don't go down a rabbit trail with this, so I'm just going to say it. She had other kids too. I mean, that seems obvious that she had a lot of other kids, but we're talking about these two, okay? These are the two we're talking about. In the course of time, Cain presented some of the land's produce as an offering to the Lord. Okay, in the course of time, Cain presented this offering. Okay, listen. The difference between verse 2 and verse 3, decades, right? At some point in time, Cain becomes this guy who is working the ground. I mean, even you could say that between this sentence here, right here in verse 2, right? Abel became the shepherd of flocks. I mean, there were decades there. I think we say at least a couple, it seems like, right? There was time that passed. Now Cain presents his offering. He presents part of the land because Cain worked the land, right? And Abel also presents an offering, right? Some of the firstborn of his flock and their fat portions. The Lord had regard for Abel. The Lord had regard for Abel in his offering, but he did not have regard for Cain in his offering. And Cain was furious, and he looked despondent. Okay, now there's all kinds of theories about why, right? Here's what I'm going to tell you. I don't believe the reason that the Lord liked Abel's and didn't like Cain's is because Abel's was a blood offering and Cain's was a grain offering. They're both of these offerings are prescribed for the nation of Israel, literally centuries later, right? So it's not that the Lord doesn't accept grain offerings or that he prefers blood offerings. I don't think that's this at all. And I don't think it's because the Lord just decided he liked Abel and he didn't like Cain. I don't think it's that, right? I think part of the key of what we need to understand here is this. Cain was furious and he looked despondent. Cain became upset, and we're going to see what happens in Cain's life. Kind of his response to the Lord shows us the reason why the Lord did not accept the offering. In some ways, we could look at this story as answering the question that we ask, why did the Lord have regard for Abel and did not have regard for Cain? Why did that happen? And let's not make assumptions now based on what we know to this point. Let's read the story and then see if we can answer the question. Okay. And the Lord said to Cain, why are you furious? Why do you look despondent or downcast? If you do what is right, won't you be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at the door. Its desires for you, but you must rule over it. Well, I think we got our answer, don't we? Certainly, in part, we have our answer. The Lord goes to Cain. Okay, so it wasn't the Lord didn't have a relationship with Cain. It wasn't that he did. The Lord goes and talks to Cain. It seems just like he had been talking to Adam and Eve, right? You go back into chapter 3, this looks a lot like the conversation that he had with Adam and Eve. And he says to Cain, why are you furious? Why? Why do you look despondent? All right? And then the Lord tells him, because, I mean, the Lord knows, right? The Lord's asking this question, but he knows the answer. The answer is because his offering was not accepted. And the Lord responds in a way that I think answers the question why your offering wasn't accepted. If you do what is right, won't you be accepted? If you do not do what is right, so what does it look like? Something going on in Cain's life was not right, right? He's not doing what is right at some point there. That's what appears obvious, doesn't it? Because he tells him, if you're doing what is right, won't you be accepted? If you're living your life this way, then your offering will be acceptable. But if you're living your life in rebellion against me, but then just want to come give an offering, now look clearly. The Lord is not saying that if you're doing good things, then you get saved. And if you're not doing good things, then you're not going to get saved. He's not saying you earn your salvation. He's talking about what happens in the maintenance of the relationship with God. What happens in your worship? How is your worship accepted or not? How does the Lord respond to your worship? You ever thought about that? And we know that's true, right? That ritual is insufficient. Ritual is insufficient. So he's saying, if you do what is right, you'll be accepted. But if you don't do what is right, look, sin is crouching at the door. Its desires for you, but you must rule over it. It appears that the sin that is crouching at the door has overtaken poor Cain. And the Lord, listen, by rejecting or not holding his offering in regard, the Lord is showing love towards Cain. He's telling him, look, you're walking down a path of destruction. And so I'm showing this. And how he showed that one was accepted and one was not, we don't know. But clearly Cain knew it was the case, right? I'm watching, Cain, and I'm telling you, you're in trouble here. And the reason I didn't accept your offering is to get your attention so that you will not continue walking down the path. See, it was love. He was not rejecting Cain. He rejected the offering because he loved Cain. Does that make sense? He rejected the offering because he loved Cain. He tells him, you better be careful because you're walking down a bad path, right? So Cain said to it, now, okay, look. Here we go. Be careful. Cain says to his brother Abel, let's go out to the field. And while they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Okay, you get the sense here that Cain didn't listen to a word the Lord had said, or that he disregarded what the Lord had said. Go back, that word, right? Had regard for. It appears to me that Cain had no regard for the words of the Lord. But he wanted the Lord to have regard for him. But he didn't care anything about the Lord. Now, who in this is wrong? Right? Who has messed up here? Clearly, Cain has messed up. And he goes out and he kills his brother. And now the Lord comes to him again and he says, where's your brother? And he says, I don't know. Lie. Exactly where it was, right? It seemed maybe like Adam and Eve, same kind of a deal, right? He replied, am I my brother's guardian or am I my brother's keeper? That's the King James Version, right? Am I supposed to be watching after him? I didn't take him to raise. You heard that phrase? You see in Cain now why his offering was not held in regard by the Lord? There was an anger, there was a rebellion, there was a decision to disregard what the Lord had to say, to not care about it. Okay, now we're going to skip, right? No, we're not. We're just going to go right here. Then he said, well, what have you done? Your brother's blood cries out to me. Your brother's, boy, what a beautiful phrase, right? Your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. So now you are cursed, alienated from the ground that opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood you have shed. If you work the ground, it will never again give you its yield. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth. Now there's other verses that talk about here, following up Cain's kind of crying and whining about this. And I think the Lord's answer is, I tried to save you. I warned you. I was on your side, Cain. and you just rejected it completely. Okay, family relationships, here's your negative example, right? Look, within family, there will be times when one gets favored over the other because that's what happens. And as a brother or a sister or a family member, you can choose to get mad about that, or you can choose to submit to the Lord and His call on your life and not allow sin, which is crouching at the door, right? Which is right there, not allow sin to take hold of your life. Don't allow sin to have that hold. Don't do that. Watch out, because it's dangerous, right? It's so close, and we open the door. We let sin have a foot. I'm not even saying the devil, right? I'm saying you let sin have a foothold, and it's hard. It will get nasty, no doubt. Hey, thanks for watching. God bless you. Appreciate you teaching. Be sure and subscribe, like, comment, share with somebody else. See you next week.